The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license nor provide any financial services. Before making investment decisions, you should obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor.
Hello, my name's James Wrigley. I'm a financial advisor and one of the principals of Melbourne-based financial planning firm First Financial. I've been a long-term listener and contributor to the Ensemble group and podcast, picking up some amazing nuggets of gold over the years. And through this podcast and the people that I'm able to speak to and interview, hopefully I can continue to deliver some of those nuggets of gold to you.
IntelliFlow is on a mission to give more people access to financial advice. Their technology, IntelliFlow Office, powers and streamlines the advisory experience for over 30,000 financial advisors worldwide, making an impact at every stage of the advice process, including practice management, revenue management, cash flow modelling, client portals, and more. IntelliFlow Office helps advisors manage all their client and provider data within a single integrated ecosystem that just works. Discover IntelliFlow for yourself by visiting intelliflow.com.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm James Wrigley and I've got the pleasure of speaking with Daniel Nell today from Tribeca. Daniel, thank you for joining me. As I said before we pressed record, lots of people that both I know and you know have said, you got to get down on, you got to get down on, you got to get down on. So here we are, no pressure, but welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
No, thank you, James. It's a massive pleasure to be here. I don't know if it's I'm that interesting, but it's surely fun and a massive privilege to be speaking to you today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting chat, and it as you said before we press record, it's kind of just your life. So maybe you don't think it's quite so interesting, but you have what I think is anyway a really interesting path to becoming a financial advisor here in Australia, then actually started overseas. And I know very little of the story and on purpose because I want to hear it kind of firsthand from you and maybe ask you some questions as we get into it. So maybe let's start briefly with what are you doing today here in Australia? And then we'll go back to how did you actually end up here? What you're doing today?
Great. So I'm a financial advisor, got promoted recently, work for Tribeca Financial, as you said. And I'm just seeing clients, starting my journey as a financial advisor in Australia. So since I said in July, been working with and for Tribeca now a little bit more than a year and a half. Before that, I worked with someone we both know very well, Nathan Fradley. I started working for him in middle of 2021, all online while still in South Africa.
Yeah. So what were you doing? So were you working as a financial advisor in South Africa? Like what were you doing in South Africa before you joined Nathan?
So I was working as a financial advisor in South Africa, been doing that for a little bit more than 13 years now.
Okay.
I am still a licensed financial advisor over there as well. So licensed in both South Africa as well as Australia.
Yeah. What made you work for an Australian business? Like how did that happen?
I think that's probably the interesting part. I mean, being a financial advisor over there for so long, I think the best way to describe it is, have you heard of the concept Ikigai, the Japanese concept of Ikigai? So that is the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. So it was I think it was 2017, just a year after I got married, thinking, okay, what do I want to do? I'm a financial advisor, been living in Bloemfontein where I was kind of lived my whole life. I was like, I want to do something more. I want to kind of be more. And I was thinking, well, I love financial planning. It's awesome. And I was thinking, well, what can I do that's hard? Looking at the current, economic climate in South Africa, people immigrating to Australia, where I can kind of hone my craft as a financial planner somewhere else. Australia was kind of a easier fit than most other countries. English, it's not my first language, but at least I can kind of get by on English as a second language. And I kind of just started looking into it. Say, okay, what do I need to do to become a financial planner in Australia? I was a CFP back there. I'm a CFP back in South Africa, postgrad, everything else done over there. And I kind of reached out to a few universities over here online, got in touch with unbelievably helpful dean at Queensland University, Central Queensland University. She helped me out immensely, Dr. Julie Knutz, and she kind of put me on a journey where I was able to understand better what I needed to do to become a financial advisor. That was at that stage. I don't know if it just before that or after that, at some stage during that whole period of mine in 2018, 2019, it moved to having Australian financial planners needing to have a full qualification to be a financial planner. So she said that I would need to do at least a postgraduate, which I got 4 subjects off as recognition of prior learning. That's basically the investment stuff, which is pretty much international. But I needed to do 4 postgrad subjects in Oz. I did that during 2019. Online, hard. I won't lie. That's hard. Superannuation. The first time I opened the book and I saw superannuation, I was like, what is superannuation? So that was a bit of a mission getting that done.
That's strange in that, you've been like, obviously, different countries and different regulations and so forth. But, you're 13 years into a career as a financial advisor and then almost starting as if you're an 18-year-old finishing high school going, what the hell is this thing?
Exactly. It cuts you down because what happens is you would know if you've been doing something for so long, you kind of get this, I think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that's what I was looking for. I wanted to challenge myself. And when I started, with this journey and I started studying and finding and learning more about how Australian financial planning worked, I was like, okay, this is going to be hard. This is not going to be easy, but it's what I signed up for. So I did the 4 subjects in 2019, got the qualification, great stuff. Now I'm going to become a financial planner in Australia. Would have gone to Queensland in 2020, March, did the biometrics, because you have to get a visa. Queensland State got a Queensland State sponsorship number with the state said, okay, they'll sponsor my visa or our visa to go and work in the Gold Coast. And at that stage, it was the weekend before COVID. And the Sunday, did the biometrics, last step that's needed to kind of, get your visa approved, everything else. And our borders shut down in 2020. So, that's at that stage, kind of, as a financial planner in South Africa, I kind of moved away from business back home, because what happened is we had a kind of a biggish financial planning firm with my dad. I worked with him. As he retired, I said, no, don't worry about it. You do your thing. I'm going to go to Australia with my wife then, and we'll kind of, I'm not going to go into the, into the family kind of side of business.
Yeah.
And there I was, 2020, not a lot of clients on the book because, I just kind of kept the family, the people that you close friends, because I knew that I won't have the capacity necessarily once I move over to Australia to efficiently service my clients back home, the full book that I had. Anyways, so what happened is COVID started. Obviously, 1 week or so to spread, just kind of kept going. And it was a funny thing. At one stage in 2020, one of the providers in South Africa, they had a online tutorial thing kind of for the financial advisors, where a guy spoke there and he said, what you need to do as a financial planner, you need to see yourself as a brand, as someone that is marked, someone that you kind of have an online footprint for, that when people search for your name, James Wrigley, they can see who you are, they can understand what you're about, and that's kind of how you set yourself up as a financial planner in the online world. That got me thinking that if I'm stuck in South Africa, not knowing when the border is going to open up, I need to put myself out there. And I started just on LinkedIn. I wasn't really on LinkedIn before then, didn't see any need on it, need for it. I started just connecting with people, just reaching out, all the while waiting for the borders to open up. Got to a site or a network I've never heard of, XY Advisors. It's like, okay, interesting concept. Join them. And this obviously now, this kind of went over to 2021 while I'm trying to kind of build a network and people that I can kind of just learn from in Australia, because got worried that I got my qualification, in the end of 2019. This is now end of 2020, starting 2021. Who's going to employ this South African guy with no Australian financial planning experience once the borders open up? And I'll never forget this, because I posted on XY's the wrong wall. Emily sent me a message afterwards. It's like, thank you for joining XY. Great to have you here, but we really don't post any things like this on the main wall. But what I asked for and what I said on that post of mine was, this is who I am. I'm in South Africa. I'm qualified to provide financial advice, but I don't have any experience. I'm willing to work for free. I just want to get some experience. And Nathan Bradley sent me a message back. And as Nathan is, the first thing he said, number one, don't work for free. And is number two, I might need someone. Let's chat. So we kind of started talking, and I think I probably can't overstate the immense help he's been along the way to get to Melbourne, where I am now. Obviously not in the Gold Coast where I would have gone. But what happened is that we're Ensemble now, and XY then kind of put me in touch with Nathan. Nathan said, okay, well, I'll give the South African a shot. I started working for him on a contract basis, just doing admin work, you can say, basically. The first day, well, I should probably say, he said to me, well, you don't really have to work Australian hours because it's 9-hour time difference. It's going to be hard. I said to him, thank you, appreciate it. But I think for me to get most value out of your knowledge, I'm going to have to work your hours. So kind of that meant getting up at 12:15 at night, started working at 1 a.m. And well, the thing is, I wouldn't say that. I kept thinking that it's okay. In a couple of weeks, the border will open up. Just a few more weeks, a few more months, it's going to open up, soon. But that was the commitment. And I think that kind of ties back to what I said about, the Ikigai, what was my purpose? Because I kind of decided way back when I started this whole journey in 2018 was that this is what I wanted to do. I want to do something hard and see what I can be if I really give it a go. So getting up at 12:15, started working at 1, wasn't really that hard. It was hard because I kind of had to figure out a way to be functional. It's just because your brain, it does things to your brain, which is weird, And at first morning when I got there, Nate, it's like, okay, please call NetWealth, and it's like, who's NetWealth? It's like, all right, I had to Google NetWealth. That's okay. This is who they are. I was like, and it's just things like that, because you're the first stage of this, and then like you said, it's like an 18-year-old or just finished studies, you start working at a financial planning firm. That's what it was for me. It's like I had no idea what I was doing. And no matter if you have the qualification, it's the practical small things that kind of get you.
And the work experience, you can't pass up the importance of that work experience that comes with it. So how long did you do that for? How long were you getting up at, just after midnight and working in the early hours?
More than a year and a half. Just over a year and a half. Yeah. Because what happened was that as I started working with Nathan, his business got bought by Tribeca that December, and I had a interview with Ryan, CEO of Tribeca, and he's like, "Okay, you seem dedicated. We'll give you a go." Ryan, obviously being the visionary he is, he's like, "Well, let's give it a go. Why not?" And I did that. A few months later, he said, "We think we can work with you. How about you don't go to the Gold Coast and we'll give you employer sponsorship and you come to Melbourne?" I thought, well, I've never been to Melbourne. Heard the weather is not great, but let's give it a go. So we started the process where Tribeca gave me employer sponsorship. Now, what that means on a visa level is they vouch for me at the government, federal level and state level that this guy has got a job and he is capable to work for us, and we will obviously meet certain rules and regulations in sponsoring him for employment with us.
Yeah.
That process took a lot longer than we expected.
Okay.
because they had to first register the federal government to become an employer sponsor. And then my visa as well, starting the whole process again. That took another 8 months, which is why I kind of did the working from 1 a.m. for more than a year and a half.
So how long have you been in Melbourne now?
Since January. Yeah, I got here in January, the 5th of January.
It's only been 7 months that you've been here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not long at all. Still getting to know the place, still getting lost on the trams. So, but it is fun. So that's how I got here. Yeah.
And your wife came over as well? Is your wife here?
No. That's a different story for another day. But no. So everything has its price, eh? So.
So you're here working as an advisor now. Before we started recording, I mentioned professional year. So a lot of podcasts I've recorded recently have either been with people that go through the professional year, some advisors that are helping people through professional year. And it's a big thing at the moment for those that are wanting to become financial advisors here in Australia. You obviously had a whole lot of it work experience in South Africa, being the financial advisor. You spoke about a few subjects that you had to do to get your Australian qualifications. You mentioned you didn't have to do the professional year. Can you tell us what? I didn't know that was a thing. What's the go there?
So what happens is you can one of two things need to happen. You have to not do a professional year. You have to prove to ASIC firstly that you are a foreign existing advisor. There's minimum requirements that kind of you have to meet for them to be able to see you as a foreign existing advisor, because you have to be minimum years of experience in the fields. You have to have worked in the fields that's similar to Australia, and then qualification requirements as well. So I had to apply to Vet Assess, Australian authority that basically assesses my qualifications to be in line with what Australian regulations authorities see, similar ones, which I had to go through there. Then I applied to FASIA back then, and they had a look at your qualifications. You pay some money, they assess your experience and qualifications. Say, okay, good, you're there. I had to reapply to ASIC after FASIA no longer there. Yeah, and they get in touch with the South African version of ASIC, which is the FSCA. See when your date of first registration was as a financial advisor, how long you've been a financial advisor, and if they are then satisfied that you have enough experience as an advisor in another country, that I'm not sure what countries are on the list, but South Africa is one of the countries that's on a list that they kind of consider. They give you your number, the number that you need to write your ASIC exam, your advisor exam. I still had to write the exam, which I did, and have to pass that, but then you don't need to do your professional year. I kind of have mixed emotions about that, to be honest, because the struggles I had and the learnings I had to go through to become a financial, or to actually practice my craft as a financial advisor in Australia, it feels to me like it would not have been a bad thing for me to do a professional year, as a requirement, because I'll be the first one to admit this, although I did not have to do a professional year, I needed to do a professional year, which I did for nearly 2 years. It was online, but you just the things that you learn, you can't transfer. Some things you can't transfer over from another country, unfortunately.
That's exactly the point that I was going to make, is to say, as much as you might not have had to have done the structured learning program that is the professional year, you've done that anyway. Year and a half, 2 years with Nathan, and working whilst you're in South Africa, the first 6-7 months or so whilst you've been here in Australia. You would have had a learning program anyway. Might not need to have been documented in quite the same fashion. That's the same thing here. The professional, as much as there's this thing called a professional year now, it wasn't a big deal for us, because all of our associate advisors, for the most part, they came from our client services team, so they were calling NetWealth and they were working out what forms they needed, and spent a couple of years as associate advisors to become advisors anyway. They already had that career path, which you've lived yourself anyway.
And I mean, you would know yourself. It's not, being a financial advisor is not always just about what you read in the books or the study work. It's the stuff in between. It's the small things. It's helping clients with, it's knowing what forms to complete. It's the smaller things that kind of makes you more efficient, better at your job. Because in today's technology era, we can use technology to find out what's the concessional contributions gaps, or things like that.
Yeah, look, I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and he was talking about he's 59. He's like, "Oh, can I access my super?" I said, "Oh, look." I said, "Look, it's either going to be 59 or 60." I said, "I can never remember off the top of my head because of this transition period that we're going through."
Yeah.
I said, "I know where to find the answer, and give me 30 seconds and I'll have the answer for you, but I don't know off the top of my head." And you don't need to know the answer off the top of it. You need to know where to find the answer or who to ask and what questions to ask, but you don't need to know the answer off the top of your head.
And I think for me, that was where my process, my journey was really made a lot easier with Tribeca, and why I kind of decided to come here in the first place is because of the support. If anybody kind of wants to make this transition or this journey over, you have to find a place that provides you with a good support network or backing. Because it's like, I don't know a lot of things. I've only been in Australia for 7 months. I'm an advisor, but there's a lot of people out there that know a hell of a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
But you have to have someone that you can ask. Or, if you've got a good team behind you, a support network, it's doable. It's a lot of, a lot of stuff that you have to go through, a lot of hurdles you have to get over, but it is possible, and just make sure that you've got a good team behind you, and it's not that hard thing.
So let's talk a little bit about your role as a financial advisor with Tribeca. So, you have this kind of tagline of my good life, or living your good life, or that's something to that effect. But what does that look like in terms of your engagements that you're then having with clients? Like, how do someone gets referred to you, you get a phone call because they found your website or whatever. Like, what does the client engagement process look like from that first interaction with clients, where you're kind of weaving in this idea of the good life for them?
Yeah. So I think, if we're talking about where our process starts, we do what most other firms do, I would suppose. We have what we call a 50-minute phone call. We just once a client reaches out, we talk to them, find out kind of if we're a good fit for them, and if we can actually add value. It's a short call, 50 minutes. We call it a 50-minute phone call at Microlog. It's just an idea. Get an idea of if we can help. If we can, we move to a discovery meeting. Again, pretty similar to everyone else's. But I think what we do differently to especially advice firms that I've been at and with in South Africa is we really go hard on the well-being part of financial advice. And I know it's such a cool term to use these days, but Ryan and Brad and the people at Tribeca has been kind of going at this for a while now, and they refined it. And I think it's a consistent process, but I think they got it to a place now where it is really useful to clients. I had a meeting yesterday with a client. We talked about specifically, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And we use, stuff like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we would kind of break that down into different categories, finding out from them what your goals are in 10 years. And because, without going into deep step, if you want to go very deep into it, but the idea is that if we can get a client to visualize his future, it would create action today, because we know what his current situation is. We know what his bank balances are, super, what their income, expenses, everything else. But what we really want to find out is, where do they see themselves in the future? So that if we can if we can get better at finding out and helping them to visualize their future, we can plan with them along the way. If that makes sense, it's a tool that we use really extensively, and I don't know if you want me to talk more about how we kind of approach that.
Yeah, please.
So what we do is the first tool we use is what we call a financial well-being matrix, and we break that down into 4 quadrants. First one being, what is a sense of security in the present? So we'll ask a client to score his feeling or her feeling from 1 to 10, 1 being very low, 10 being very high, and tell us, so for example, how do you see your sense of security in your financial control in the present? That would be something like cash flow. Are you in control of how in control do you feel about your income and expenses? Do you know where your money is going? Don't you know where your money is going? They'll say 6, 7, 8, depending on how involved they are in their budgeting. The other quadrants is your sense of security in the future. How do you feel you'll be able to absorb any big financial shocks? We'll then go and say, all right, your feeling of financial freedom in the present, give us a score. That is, do you feel you can do what you want when you want to do it? Do you feel you have any financial restrictions? And the last one, the bottom right quadrant, is what is your financial, do you feel you're on path to meet your goals in the future? Your financial freedom, freedom of choice in the future.
Yep.
Why we do that is, and how I see why we do that is, because well-being and studies have shown that clients' happiness are mostly closest linked to their feeling of freedom. Is, can you do what you want, when you want, for how long you want? And that's the biggest contributor to overall happiness. So, and that's true for most people. And that you don't need to, what makes you happy can be different to what makes me happy. You might want to spend time with your wife, kids, and being at work, having a mortgage, paying off a car loan. That restricts you from doing what you actually want to do, giving you that freedom. The box on the bottom left side of the score. For me, it might be going on hikes, working 4 days, whatever else that might be. And so we as financial planners want to understand and break down for a client where the areas are we can improve their lives the most. So if we know, for example, that they score very low on their sense of security in the future, there's a few things that we can do to improve that. Insurance can be one thing, because all of a sudden, if you've got income protection cover, you're less worried about your ability to earn an income if you can't work. The same thing with your financial freedom in the future. Are you on track to meet your goals? We can do modeling, SOA. We can provide them for financial advice. That's an easy one to do. So yeah, that's one tool we use. And then the next one would be the 10-3 now, what we call a 10-3 now. 10 years, 3 years, and now. And as I said previously, what we kind of want to work towards is getting clients to, in a smart way, specific, measurable, actionable. We want their goals clearly defined for them, so that we know and they know what we're working towards. And that's how we kind of use those to increase their overall well-being.
Yeah. Where in that, so I'm interested, so the different firms have different kind of engagements in terms of the delivering of a statement of advice. There are firms out there that say there's all this work and this engagement and this 4-quadrant thing that you've spoken about. And there's a whole bunch of work that you can do with clients. It actually has nothing to do with, I actually need to issue you with a statement of advice for your income protection policy. Okay, so where in that journey do clients start paying fees? And also where in that journey do you deliver them a statement of advice in whatever format that might be delivered in, but let's call it a statement of advice. Where are those two things, the fees part and the delivering of advice?
So the discovery meeting we do, if a client's referred to us by an existing client or via a current COI network, referred to us, they don't pay for the discovery meeting. Our client do pay for the discovery meeting if they just come to us, organically. The work we put in that presentation, working through their goals, helping them to define it, we do, and we provide them that presentation after the meeting, because we kind of feel that even if a client don't go ahead to a statement of advice, even if we don't provide, insurance advice or whatever else it might be, super advice, they can walk away from the meeting with some value, with a better idea of where they want to go. Because, great, that we do. If I understand your question correctly, if at the back of that meeting, a client feels that we can add enough value, and if we feel we can add enough value to them, then we move ahead to actual financial advice. and then obviously the process goes as
Continues on from there.
Most firms, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And so, who are the types of clients that you're working with at the moment? Has that been have some existing clients of the firm been transitioned across to you? Like you as an individual advisor, who are you working with at the moment?
Yeah, and I think in due course, yes. But for me personally, I have being through the journey of immigration and understanding very well what it takes to get here. My niche, the people I want to help, that I think the area I would be able to provide the most assistance in is South African expats who have moved or want to move to Australia. Before moving here, I didn't just decide I want to come here. I did a bit of market research. So I know there's 200 South Africans in Australia who was born in South Africa. 200,000, right? I know there's 10,000 just in Melbourne. There's enough people I can help here. South African rules and what kind of kicked me off, once when I said about the Ikigai, and one of the intersection, one of the things that I talk to is what the world needs. In South Africa, what happened is in 2021, Pension Fund Amendment Act came into effect where once you immigrate, you can't take your retirement money out of a retirement fund for 3 years after you moved to another country. So we have a bunch of South African people currently in Australia who have money in South Africa, who can't get their money. So they need a financial advisor over there, might have a financial advisor over there, but also one over here. I am licensed in South Africa, but I'm also licensed here. So that puts me in a very unique position where I'm able to help them in both countries, where I would be then, and obviously I understand the process, the budgeting, what it costs to get here, the emotional, psychological toll it takes on you to move across. So
incredible.
That's kind of my niche, if you want to.
Yeah, and so once you start to kind of market that in one way, shape or form, I suspect you'll be quite successful at it. Just as you're talking there, I'm trying to attract South Africans that have come to Australia, but I would every year probably talk to 2 or 3 that have. They just somehow or other find their way to talking to me, and they all talk of, we came here, we had to kind of give up everything, and we came here with nothing, and we were that had some level of success or wealth or whatever you want to call it in South Africa, and then gave it for the most part up to come here and start again. There's a lot out there that need that help.
That's true, and the thing is, it's I think very few people really grasp what burden, how hard it is to actually uproot your whole life and move it to another country. It's a hard thing to do. You invest a lot of money because it's very expensive to do it. So not everyone, gets a company who pays for their containers or pays for their flights and everything. That's not how it works. So you have to, a lot of these costs you have to kind of fit yourself. So people will use their life savings to move here, to try and build a better life. And once they get here, as I did, they don't know anything about financial planning in Australia. They don't understand what a superannuation guarantee is, or where to put their money, industry funds or, retail. They don't know. And the thing is, that's kind of where I felt that I can make a difference. I can help people because, the last thing you want to worry, you have to manage things like where to buy, it's so funny. It's like walking into Coles for the first time. It's like, self-checkout? This is a bit weird. It's like, we don't have self-checkouts, in most places and most towns and stuff in South Africa. Very few shops. Actually.
There's a whole series of just relatively simple videos that you can do off of that to just, start putting on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, wherever of, just the self-checkout at Coles. How do you navigate the self-checkout at Coles?
Yeah.
It's incredible once you start to think about the opportunities that are there.
And the thing is, if you look at financial planning and the difference we can make in people's lives is, and I'm really a firm believer that we can make a massive difference in people's lives. We really it's like we help people and it might sound corny to some, but we help make people's dreams a reality. We help them plan for a better life, to go back to the tagline of My Good Life. And whatever that is for whomever that is, it's saving for a car. So when your kid turns 18, they can get a car. It doesn't matter what it is, but we can make things like that happen. And if the people I want to help, if they get to Australia and they have to start over in a way, if I can make that process and that journey easier for them, then that'll make my life, that'll make my job a lot more satisfying.
It's incredibly fulfilling work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Dan, thank you. As I said at the start, I thought this would be a fantastic podcast, and it certainly has been. Hopefully, there's a bit of value. I know there's a lot of value for whether you're a financial advisor here in Australia, or maybe some of the South Africans might actually pick up this episode as well. So, Dan, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, James. Appreciate the time. And I mean, I think a lot of advisors listen to this, and if there's financial planners out there that kind of want to make the same move over here and want some advice or just a chat, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have.
Where's best, if anyone wants to reach out to you, where's best to find you? LinkedIn or
find me on LinkedIn. I'm relatively active on there.
Yeah.
So just send me a message. I'll respond, and just basically LinkedIn.
We'll put some links to your profile and so forth in the show notes of wherever anyone might be listening to this on Apple or Spotify or wherever else people might be listening.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Great to chat with you.
Same. Thanks, James.